Okay, so I have Montel Williams here on the podcast today to speak about his experience with MS. And Montel, it is an absolute honor to be speaking with you today. Like I was telling you earlier, I watched all of your shows growing up and have followed you as you have become an advocate in the chronic illness and autoimmune community because of your experience.
Thank
And
you so much.
yeah, one thing you've really inspired me to do is to continue to advocate for myself, and really, be educated about what's going on with autoimmunity and my own personal experience, and realize the importance of advocacy. So I thank you for that. And I'm really, really happy to have you here sharing your story.
No, thank you, Sword. I think you've nailed it. I mean, one of the most important things that I think we can do, any of us who suffer from any type of illness, is to recognize the fact that you alone own the definition of who you are. I mean, the truth of the matter is, doctors, nurse practitioners, others can literally take out a crystal ball and try to figure out whether or not they can prognosticate and tell you what they think may happen. But you have as much control over, I think, your future as anything else or anyone else has. And so the fact that you recognize that, you have to be your own advocate in owning your definition, that's also what makes you, I think, stronger. It makes you understand that the more knowledge you have, that's the most important thing. I mean, I think when I was first diagnosed with MS, the first thing I did was jump into back then, we didn't have the internet this way. And, I had to run to the library. I had to get out books. I had to see if I could pull up articles and see if I could find articles that were published and printed that talked about this disease. But I tried my best to devour as much information as my brain could take, so that, not that I could become as smart as a doctor, but I would at least understand everything that a doctor would say to me if I went and asked a question.
Yes, definitely. Because sometimes I think we're used to this model of going to the doctor, wanting, telling them our problem, getting the solution, going home, and just sort of doing what we're told. But when it comes to these longer term chronic illnesses, just like you said, we have to be our own advocate and be educated, in that. And for you, how have you found that, being your own advocate has helped you? For those that don't know, I think you were diagnosed around 1999. Is that right?
Right. I was first diagnosed in 1999. I got the confirmation in the January 2000. My first diagnosis came in November 99. And again, the first thing I did was try to empower myself, because I'm a big believer in the fact that knowledge is king. And so the more knowledge I had made me understand that, someone with a crystal ball can't know exactly what's going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And the doctor that diagnosed me acted like he had his own crystal ball. He thought he was the guy from Wizard of Oz, standing behind a curtain. And he could predict what was going to happen to me the next week and the next week and the next week. And I thought to myself, when I walked out of his office, when he gave me his prognosis, I said, how the heck can you say something like that to me when you didn't know who I was when I walked in here? And now you're going to predict who I'm going to be after I've walked out. So I wanted to really take a hard look at the data and find out whether or not there was any truth behind it, because my diagnosis came with the prognosis of I'd be in a wheelchair in 4 years, and that, my life expectancy would probably be shortened by 15%. And I kind of sat back and went, wait a minute, how the heck can anybody know that? And there's got to be things that I can do to help, number one, impact, mitigate, lessen, slow down the symptoms and their veracity. And I worked really hard at it. And I recognized from day one that, yes, science has come a long way. Even back when I got diagnosed, science had reached a point where we had, back then, there was only 3 medications. Now there's almost 17 different medications for people to take when it comes to MS. And so science has come a long way, but you don't go to battle with one weapon in your arsenal or one arrow in your quiver. You go to battle with multiple arrows in your quiver. And I knew that though Western medication said one thing, there's people who have been treating illnesses, MS has been around since 1863, first written about. So if it's been around that long, there are a lot of people who survived and didn't even know that they had MS. And how did they do that? And you look back in time, you recognize that there were holistic techniques. There were things that, like you shared with me, the journey that you've been on with an inflammatory disease. Well, one of the things that you probably work at every day is trying to reduce the impact of the environment, what you eat, and how you live on inflammation. Well, inflammation is probably the greatest nemesis of MS. So that was a journey that I started from day one, trying to make sure that I put the foods in my mouth that were not going to help exacerbate inflammation. I stopped doing the things that I knew would cause an immune response that would be inflammatory. When I was first diagnosed, a doctor told me very early on, this gave me the choice of medications. I dug into the physician's deck reference and read about those medications and looked at the side effects, and then tried my best to go to the companies that produced that medication and got their data on their efficacy, and then did cross comparisons. And I picked one that I thought had the most, at the time, most efficacious outcome. But one of the things that it said on the box of that medication was that this is a medication that, alcohol and alcohol use can exacerbate site reactions and exacerbate the immune response. So 20 years ago, I stopped drinking. I mean, I said, okay, wait a minute. If I have to take this medication, the crap better work.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do anything that's going to stop it from working if I have to do this X, Y, and Z. And so, and a lot of people know that a lot of the medications that are there for MS are injectable medications. And I'm not going to stick a needle in my body and not have it work. So, I started reducing from that day my alcohol consumption. I'm very proud to say that, probably in the last 20 years, I've had probably 20 sips of alcohol in 20 years. And that normally happens on New Year's Eve. When I'm out with a friend, when somebody hands me a glass, I'll take a sip and put it down. I was at a dinner last week. I was in Dubrovnik in Croatia, and had a dinner with some really, really very powerful, influential people, heads of state, heads of government. And, they were putting the wine glasses in front of everybody. And I knew that there were going to be multiple toasts. So when the waiter came over to my glass, I put a finger at the glass and said, don't fill it. I just said, no more than that. Stop it. I took water, poured it in to fill the glass up the rest of the way. And I did the toast along with everybody else. But I was literally drinking only, 1% alcohol, and the rest of it was water. But that was enough for me. And I have not felt a loss. Don't feel as if I've missed out on anything. I've been 100% fine not drinking. But there's things that you have a choice. And if you really want to fight your illness and you want to survive and thrive, you have to make some tough choices. And that's one that I decided to make.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it's like those day-to-day choices that we have to make. And when you connect to why I always have my clients and people connect to, why are you making this choice? Right. And we kind of go back and look at it and we think, like you were saying, I want this medication to work. I want my health to be in as best condition as possible. I want to manage this autoimmune disease. Those are powerful whys. And it can make it a little bit easier, to make those harder day-to-day decisions too, I think.
Correct. Absolutely. And that's something that I think that, any of us facing an autoimmune disease have the right to make a choice. You said it earlier, most people like to go to the doctor and have a doctor tell them what to do and blindly go on after that doctor's appointment, attempting to be compliant. But I think one of the biggest problems that we've seen with medication in the United States and with illness is the fact that most people aren't compliant. You go to a doctor, the doctor writes your prescription, and 3 days in, people stop taking it. And then they go, I feel better, so I don't need to take the medication. The medication was written in a prescription so that it would solve at least that immediate problem. That means that you've got to take all of that medication, unless it says take only for a few days, and when you feel better, stop taking it. Most medications don't say that. Most medications are written in a prescription so that you can complete that prescription. That's what people need to understand and do. And that's the same thing, not only when it comes to prescriptions, but comes with that holistic approach. There are certain foods that I steer away from. There's certain things that I try my best to not consume because I know that it's going to elicit a autoimmune response of inflammation in my body. And I don't want to put my body through that.
Yeah, so it sounds like for you, some of the biggest things have been diet, things to reduce inflammation, being your own advocate. What are some of the most impactful practices or things or mindsets or beliefs that have really helped you to heal over the years?
I mean, I exercise and try to continue to exercise now, but I've reached out and tried to find, you know, modalities of treatment that aren't on the beaten path. They're off the beaten path. Things that have literally helped impact me. Everybody's disease is different, but as I've been introduced to different things, I've picked those things and picked and chosen things that actually work for me. How do I know they work for me? When I know that I feel better the next day and I feel better the day after that, then clearly something I'm doing must be working. And that's what I try to focus on and stay on. And it's a tough road in some ways, but if you make it part of your life, it becomes easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I like to call it that N equals one experimentation. Like it's just yourself, especially with autoimmunity.
Absolutely.
And have you found even people with MS, maybe a similar diagnosis of you, really that, a lot of different things work differently for different people, even with MS specifically?
Well, I think that's the one thing about this disease that is so insidious is the fact that, you know, practically everyone who's been diagnosed with this disease, I think, got diagnosed differently and deals with and suffers from different symptoms. They may be a group of core symptoms that seem to be close, but nothing's exactly similar. Nothing's matches 100% to someone else. So we all are on a path. I like to think we're all on the same bus, but we're all sitting in different seats.
Yeah.
And, as we ride down the road, yeah, we may all feel the bump, but, if you feel the bump is sitting under the front wheels, you feel a little bit different than sitting in the middle of the bus away from the wheels, and you feel a little differently than sitting under the back wheels. Well, that's how the disease manifests itself in so many people. And so that's also part of the reason why there are so many companies out there that have developed medications, because most doctors and most neurologists will tell you that one size doesn't fit all. And doctors really are forced to, when it comes to MS, to tailor a treatment protocol for the individual. But if that individual takes the time to work with their doctor, work with their caregiver, and come up with that regimen that works for them, I know they'll find success in slowing down the progression, and also they'll find success in thriving with the illness rather than just succumbing to it.
Yes, absolutely. And I always like to ask the question too, because with any kind of trauma or illness or whatever, oftentimes when you go through this journey, then you can at some point start to see the things that it may have given you or insights it may have given you or things you might be even grateful for it. So I always like to ask, is there anything that MS has given you or that you are grateful for about this experience?
I said from day one, and I still truly believe that today, that it's been a mixed blessing in a way. It's made me more aware and more empathetic to my fellow man, no matter what their plight would be. But it's also made me more aware of me. I spend more time understanding the need for me to spend time with myself and not be afraid to spend time with myself. I spend a lot of time almost every single day, every day, evaluating where I stand, where I am at, and taking a good hard look at myself and recognizing that, the day was a good day and I should be happy with having had a good day. And I spend a lot of time, paying attention to my own mindfulness. And I think it's something that no matter what the illness is that we have, that's a tool that a lot of Western medication doesn't subscribe to. But we know for a fact that old saying of mind over matter is true. We have the ability within us. There are several books that have been written about it recently. Dr. Deutsch's book about the brain that heals itself, the brain's way of healing. We know that our brains have the capacity. We only use, whether it be between 10 and 20% of our brain cells, there's another 80% of those brain cells that are sitting there that are undersigned. And we know that if we put the right mindfulness tools to practice, we can get the brain to evaluate where it is and try to step in and help us. And we don't spend a lot of time talking about that because people think that that's some sort of psycho mumbo jumbo. But it's not. It's real science. And real science has proven that we have the ability to force our own brains into a plastic state. And the more and more we push ourselves to do that, the better we become at it.
Yes, exactly. I think that's amazing. And like you said, having it develop a better connection with yourself. I mean, that's probably one of the greatest gifts of this, is being able to pay attention to your body and yourself and have that really deep connection. Although maybe we could have had it in another easier way, but it's what a great gift, you know?
Sure. Well, sometimes it takes a smack upside the head to stop you and make you take a minute to, number one, appreciate who you are. I mean, if you really spend the time, I say that the most important thing about an aspect of my illness is owning the definition of who I am. I have MS. MS is never going to have me. And the only way I can make that happen is truly know who I am. And, I know that if yesterday, I was feeling a little down, I was been traveling a lot this month. I'm kind of in the middle of a little jet lag. I have to kind of recognize that and take the minutes and take the time to rest. Take the time to get true rest, not sit down and watch a TV and get aggravated by the news.
Yeah.
But cut the TV off and sit down in a room and think about, one of the things that I do every day, it's kind of a little silly mantra, but I say to myself, what did I do today that's worth talking about tomorrow? And if you spend that time looking back, that helps you reflect on your entire day. It helps you reflect on every interaction you've had with other people. It helps you understand why you may have gotten a little angry at something that should have been something that rolled off your back. Maybe tomorrow I won't get angry at something as silly as that again because I recognize that was silly for me to do today. So, it's something that I think it's something you can share with, your listeners and people who tune in. It's like every single day. It's really simple. All you got to do is take a little piece of paper, put it by the bed, and, cut that TV off 40 minutes before you think you're going to go to sleep. Yeah. And take that piece of paper and ask yourself out loud, and that's something that I also believe very strongly in. I don't have a problem talking to me. I run my mouth and talk to so many other people. Why can't I talk to myself? Am I so afraid of me that I can't talk to me? And I literally out loud ask myself, what did I do today that's worth talking about tomorrow? And then I write down on a piece of paper at least one thing that I want to wake up in the morning. And when I wake up in the morning, I take a piece of paper and take it in the bathroom with me. And I read that before I look in my eyes to wipe the sleep out of my eyes. And recognize that, you know what? I'm starting the day off with a success rather than with an, oh, woe is me. I'm starting the day off really ready to embrace the next day because I'm looking forward to doing something good that day too, rather than being afraid to go to work because, oh, no. I start my day off wanting to have a success rather than thinking I'm going to be a failure.
I love that. I'm 100% going to do that. I'm going to do that tonight.
Good,
I'm going to do that tonight. I really am. I think that's a really amazing practice. And I'm happy you shared that because it can feel like something actionable that people can try and experiment with today, tonight even. That's amazing. And before we wrap up, I do want to ask you more about your project, MS, My Second Act, that you are partnering with the Moth and the MS Foundation. So tell me more about that. And I know it's really all about, sharing your story, which you're able to do today, which I know people listening are going to be thrilled to be able to hear this and hear your insight. But tell me more about that project and how people can connect with that.
It's an unbelievable project that was put together by a team, really a team of partners. One is Novartis, the other one is the MS Association of America.
Yep.
And the other one being the Moth. And these are groups that have come together to empower and educate MS survivors on how the disease progresses, introduce them to the idea of secondary progressive MS, and share with them the tools that will give them the ability to tell their own story, focus in on their own story so they can share it with others in an effort to educate and also in an effort to empower not just the other survivors, but caregivers and loved ones and doctors, to make them understand that this is a journey that we're going to have to face. But if we face it together, what's that old saying? A rising tide lifts all boats. So the more the merrier that come together to support an individual, the better an individual will do. And so I'm so psyched that this program is getting ready to start. It gives an opportunity for people and anybody who's actually watching your podcast, and let them know that if they go up on mymsaa.org, they can download some tools that will help them put together their story in a way that'll make it valuable to be shared with others, and they can get more information themselves. And then once they start sharing these stories, this is a real good way for a community to come together to support each other. And right now, I got to tell you, this is a big community that needs this kind of support. And I'm just proud to be a part of this team of Novartis, MSAA, and the Moth in sharing this.
Yes, thank you so much. And I will be sure to put that link in the show notes for people so everyone can access that. And I think it'll be a great exercise. I live in Seattle in the Pacific Northwest, where there's a much higher incidence of MS as well, too.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting, because you're right. Absolutely. In the Pacific Northwest, even up as far as, Vancouver and Winnipeg, Canada, which has one of the highest per capita populations of MS there is in the world. It's very, very funny. If you go back in time and look at every place that a Viking put his foot on the ground, you find the remnants of MS, which is very interesting because, the Vikings, or, I helped to fund some research at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, Sweden, and there's a published document, or a peer-reviewed published document that's been out now for 14 years, where, the Vikings, I don't know why they're so proud of it, but they claim that, MS is a Viking gene and gene malformation. So, it's unfortunate that that area of the country that's so beautiful has so many people who are living with, dealing with, suffering from MS. But at the same time, I'm hoping that something like, my MS second act will finally get this entire group to start talking to each other, start sharing stories that'll help empower others.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm really excited to see how that progresses. And I thank you so much for being here and for taking your time and for sharing your story and connecting with this community. And I know that people will get a lot out of what you shared today, and it will mean a lot. So I really, really thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine. Thanks for putting the word out.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Thank you so much.
You stay well, and I wish you so much luck with your journey.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. You too.
Thank you.